Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a video here to talk about another Star Wars trilogy, but I'm only doing the first book of that trilogy. This is the pretty much the immediate follow-up to the Thrawn trilogy, which I did a video on all three of those in one, in case you're interested in my very controversial thoughts about that. But it also follows up to Dark Empire 1. I think Dark Empire 2 was after this, but I could be wrong. Anyway, that's a comic series. If you haven't read it, it's okay. It's got its moments. So, Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy Volume 1, or Book 1, if you want to call it that. This is called Jedi Search. And I've had this, no joke, on my shelf for probably 6 years. Probably 5, somewhere in there. Right around the time I got married. And just found it at a bookshop. I picked it up because I love the video game called Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. Dude, I've played that game so much since it came out, basically, across PC and consoles and so many different things. I love the Jedi Academy game. And that takes place way after this trilogy, so it doesn't really count, but there's some cool things I remember about that game that are in here towards the end. But anyway, Kevin J. Anderson is not a writer that I've read a lot of from Star Wars, so this was a massive surprise to me. I think he did one of the Old Republic books, and I think I read the one that he did. I don't know if it was Revan. It might have been something else. But anyway, Anderson's all over the place. He's been a Star Wars writer for a long time, man, with young adult books like the Young Jedi Knights series or whatever with Jaina and Jason Solo. Anyway, I have really been worried about going into this trilogy, but I had heard a lot of promising things. As many of you know, if you've watched my old video, I'm not a fan of the Thrawn trilogy. There's very little in the Thrawn trilogy I like. One of the worst things for me was Zahn's writing style, and I had heard a lot about this trilogy. I had heard that this Kevin J. Anderson Jedi Academy trilogy was a billion times worse. I heard that it was like antithetical to the Zahn trilogy. But I had also heard in some parts of, like, different parts and websites and whatever, forums, that if you hated the Thrawn trilogy, that you would like this trilogy more, possibly. So far, that's being proven true, because I was not a fan of Thrawn trilogy. This really impressed me, gotta be honest with you. I loved this book. It's the first time I've ever read it. I've never read this or the rest of the trilogy at any point. But I gotta tell you up front, I loved this book. I thought it was better than all three of the Thrawn trilogy books. Whether it be in concept, in action sequences, in representation of our main characters, some new side characters. I loved this. I thought it was so good. I have heard that the next two books are way worse. That's one thing that I've heard a lot of. Maybe that's where the criticism of this book comes from. I don't really know. But a lot of the things aimed at this book, I think, are unfair. I think it's really, really well done. And I guess I'll go ahead and get into that without any spoilers, like I said. Essentially, they're trying to continue to begin the rebellion, right? Luke, Han, and Leia. Leia's kind of in charge as their main representative alongside Mon Mothma. And they're kind of going out and traveling to do their little, like political meetups and stuff and talk to locals and trying to get more planetary systems and governments on board with the rebellion to help out with whether it be defense or taxation or whatever they can do. And Leia is also pregnant, by the way. She's about to have her third baby Anakin, we all know about. And basically, Jaina and Jason are toddlers at this point, but they've been taken off with a handmaiden, kind of like what Padme pretended to be back in the day when she was queen. And this handmaiden, Winter, takes Jaina and Jason away and hides them and takes care of them like a nanny, And I think that's a weird idea, right? Because Leia and Han have barely seen their two kids. Those kids are kind of almost afraid of Leia and Han when they actually see them at points. But they're brought back in now that kind of, protection of letting them grow up as babies into toddlers and whatever. They've been brought back now, and Winter, the assistant, is taking the new baby, Anakin, away in a little bit, once it's born. So Leia is figuring out the trouble of balancing with C-3PO, and this isn't as comedic as it's going to sound. It sounds like a 3-minute a baby comedy. I swear to God it's not. Of her trying to take care of her two babies, having a third baby, and then also trying to be a mother and a politician at the same time. And I thought that was interesting. I thought the stuff with her being a mom was very well done. Now, some of the side stories we have here. The one that I thought was way better than it actually was, I think the Leia story is probably the weakest of all three, but it was good. Well, I guess you have three other side stories. But anyway, you basically have, Han and Chewbacca basically go off to try to get Kessel, where the whole Kessel Run thing happened we talked about in the movies. They're going out to try to get Kessel on board with the rebellion. And when they go out there, they get held hostage at one point by this guy named Moreth Dul. He's an alien type of thing. They get held hostage, and this is such a great idea that you could never do in the movies without kind of cheating and doing like the nighttime lighting that movies do when people can't supposedly see, but you and I can see just fine. This spice mine that Han and Chewbacca are thrown into as slaves, basically, and they're upset because, they're about to have the new baby, Leia is. So Han and Chewbacca want to be there, but they can't. It was supposed to be a quick run. They were supposed to be back before she had the baby, and that may or may not work out. It's a little tense, man. So Han and Chewbacca are held as slaves in this mine where there are no lights at all. The guards have like night vision goggle things. There's creatures and critters down there that are very dangerous. But you have to work in the dark at all times, and it's to prevent escape, essentially. People have to sleep chained up to each other and whatever. It was such a crazy, wild concept. And they happen to meet a young man that's like probably 19, 20, I think is what the book said, or hinted towards, named Kip. And Kip is a really cool, sweet kid that I enjoyed. I thought he was a fun, younger guy to have in the book. He kind of fit in just fine with Han and Chewie to me, but he's got some darker parts of him, but he's also a Force-sensitive character. And I really like the kind of friendship that Han and Kip and Chewbacca build up together in this horrible situation. I'm going to tell you right now, some of the action sequences in this book were so badass and so awesome in a way that I cannot describe. The way people talk about the Thrawn trilogy, they never have that there compared to what they have here. Anderson does so much cool shit, even down to this mine storyline. I didn't expect to like this Chewbacca Han slavery mine thing as much as I did. It was one of the highlights of the book, to be honest with you. The book alone, if it was just about that, you should read it, but it's not. And by the way, this book is like 350 pages, and it flies by. It totally flies by. Let's get over to talking about Lando. Lando tries to help out with Luke on trying to find a new Jedi, following a lead on a Jedi somewhere, and it's kind of like a gambling thing, and it was a fun time, and I enjoy Lando, and I think Kevin J. Anderson got Lando even more, his dialogue, the way he talks, the way he carries himself, really well, just as much as Timothy Zahn did with the Thrawn trilogy. And I thought Lando was really fun here, and I thought it was cool having him try and help out Luke, but not traveling with Luke most of the time. His little side plot was a lot quicker than everybody else's. It was kind of done and over, But then eventually he teams up with Luke. But let's talk about Luke's story here. Luke Skywalker talks to the rest of the rebellion and tries to get permission to go out and find some Jedi to begin a Jedi Academy if he can find a good location for it. But he needs some students first. So he travels to some different places. By the end of the book, he gets a couple of new people. And I don't want to really tell you too much of their names or anything. I'll save that for the next book because of the stuff that pans out with him and with Lando's search and whatnot. This was awesome. It was awesome. It was the Luke that I know, not the one that everybody talks about the Timothy Zahn character being. And obviously that's taking place before this. That came out before this trilogy. But I love Luke in this book. I think he is so awesome, dude. One of the ways he tries to convince somebody to come with him involves lava, and I'm telling you, it is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen done in Star Wars. It would be one of the coolest things ever if Disney did scenes like this or did this book as an adaptation to a TV show or a movie. It would be one of the coolest things you would ever see in Star Wars if they would do it in a movie. Now, one of the things that Luke finds out as he tries to train Leia in this book, it's kind of weird. People debate in the fan base so far, from what I've seen in reviews and listened to and read online. I think it's cool. I think it's okay to have this. Basically, Luke, to find out if someone's a Force user, he has to like use the Force to like rub their head, basically. And if he touches like in the back of their skull or their spiritual brain or something, there's like a trigger almost, a defense that the Force will use on those users who actually have that Force ability, or are Force sensitive, if you will, where Luke will just get thrown across the room, basically. And this happens with anybody trying to prod into that area of somebody's head who happens to be a Force user. It sounds really stupid. I'm telling you, it's fun. I like it. I think it's played up in a humorous way, because no one's ever heard of this before. I had never heard of this before. Luke had never heard of this before. And next thing he knows, he's getting kicked across the room like he's a toy. You know, and I thought that was really a wild area to go to. But it makes Luke wonder about how to test Force-sensitive people in an easier way. The map around with that, I'm not going to tell you about it, but it involves tech from the Empire, from back in the day when they were hunting Jedi. And it is such a great idea. I don't even have words for how great of an idea that is. It was such a cool idea to have in here. And we never see that kind of creativity with Disney, or with anybody nowadays, as the novel writers, as the comic writers. I was thoroughly impressed with this book and what it did in that regard, and with Luke. That whole touching somebody's spiritual button thing is a little weird. And I enjoy it in a fun Star Wars-y type of way. To me, it's the debate is on what's worse, this or midichlorians, right? Well, we have both. Regardless of whether you like it or not, they're both in Star Wars canonicity for Disney and for Legends canon. The thing is, both are goofy, both are over the top in a weird sci-fi way. I don't mind either. I really don't, to be honest with you. This book overall felt more Star Wars-y than anything else that I've read from, like, again, Zahn or some of the... I've read a couple of prequel books here and there. This felt more like OG Star Wars, but it felt like Star Wars generally. Like the weird things that happened, the cool action and adventure stuff that I grew up with the prequels, with the prequel comics. I really love how much this felt like Star Wars to me. It just felt like what I wanted this trilogy to be. And again, I'm very much a believer so far that this is the trilogy for me, not the Thrawn trilogy from Zahn. Or at least the old Thrawn trilogy, because he has the new one too. Now, there is a bad guy in here we have to kind of talk about a little bit. Basically, she was... there's a whole squadron of people that were under Tarkin's reign in the Empire. The leader of them is Admiral Dala, or Dala. I think it's Dala, though. Her and her team have been basically in a black hole maw somewhere. And they've just been there for like 11 years, just waiting for new orders from the Empire, just maintaining their ships, living, waiting for more orders, like I said. And they don't know that the Empire's fallen yet, or that Tarkin is gone and dead. And this Admiral Dala chick, Dala, she was apparently a lover, and also like, I think this was mentioned in the Thrawn trilogy. Somebody said it was, and I swear I remember her name faintly, but I don't remember too much about it. She was like a lover for Tarkin, but she was also a student that he taught tremendously, and it was very rare to have women serving in the Empire at all, and she's in there, you know, she was one of the best admiral officers, whatever. That's not really shown in this book. I'm assuming the next two books, Dark Apprentice and Champions of the Force, will probably delve into that more, I hope, because it'd be nice, you know, but this was so, she's not a great villain by any means, but I was interested in what they could do with her and her team. And there's this whole other side story about tech involving the Death Star that I don't want to get into, something called the Sun Crusher. It's kind of a bigger spoiler. It's not really a cool spoiler, though, so I'm just going to leave that alone. I don't really care enough about that. I'll probably forget about that detail within a month or so of not reading any more of these books, because it might be a little bit till I can get to book 2. But, yeah, Admiral Dala was okay. I didn't love her character. The side characters that come into here, aside from the people who come to be students with Luke, those villain characters were not great. You know, you didn't have like a lot of the side villains like Paleon, for example, from the Thrawn trilogy. You didn't have a whole lot of that with Dala. You had a little bit more, to be honest with you, with like the guy who, Morath Duel, who takes Han and Chewie captive. And I thought he was a better villain than Dela is in this book, to be honest with you. He shouldn't be as big of a threat as he is, but he is. The book lets him. Kevin J. Anderson writes him that way, even though it's more of a small-scale threat than what, Dela could do and her team could do. So anyway, the action is really good in here. I think the writing style is fantastic. I really like how Anderson writes in general. I swear he wrote the Revan book, but that could be Drew Karpyshyn, who did the Bane trilogy. I really enjoyed this. I recommend it highly if you haven't read it before. I'm really hoping and praying that book 2 and 3 are good and not as bad as people make them out to be, but dude, it seems consistent people hate at least book 3. So I guess I'll get around to that eventually. We'll see how it goes. But at the end of the day, this particular one, I recommend it very highly, like I said. And if you don't like the Thrawn trilogy, if you think it sucks, like I do, then go check this out. Give it a shot. I really think this is solid. I think obviously there are things out there like the Bane trilogy that are way better than this. But this is good for what it is and what it's trying to accomplish. I just want more Jedi Academy stuff. Obviously by the title of the book, it's Jedi Search. They're searching for Jedi most of the book. But Luke doing that is fun. And I want more Jedi Academy stuff. And I'm really happy with what I got by the end of this book because of all of the cool set pieces and scenes they do. It's a great read. I could not possibly recommend it more to you. So anyway, have you read Star Wars Jedi Academy Book 1, Volume 1, whatever we're calling it, Jedi Search by Kevin J. Anderson? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Is this your favorite Anderson book? Do you like this better than the Thrawn trilogy? I would be interested to see what people would say. I'm sure I know the answer. But yeah, let's have that discussion down below. And like I said, I got my old videos about the Thrawn trilogy as a one whole rant. So go check that out too if you'd like. Anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.